Hello, this is Rachel Diskin from CEDAM. I am our AmeriCorps National Service Program Director, but I'm also experienced in facilitating community action poverty simulations. So on this very brief webinar today, I am going to give you a little bit of information about what it takes to actually host a poverty simulation. So this webinar is for people who are interested in bringing a poverty simulation to your community or to your organization. So I'm going to give you a brief overview about what a poverty simulation is, talk about CEDAM's responsibilities, what we'll bring to the table, and we'll also talk about your organization or your community's responsibilities, and then a brief moment on how to get started. So first off, what is a poverty simulation? So depending on whether you participated in one or not, it can be kind of hard to grasp what a poverty simulation actually is. So the best way I like to explain it is to look at it like a game of life. So it is in no way a game because it really is based on the day-to-day scenarios of folks in low-income situations, but it does kind of follow the same outline as a game of life. A participant comes into the poverty simulation and they're given a new role for their month in poverty. So they receive a completely new persona. They might be an elderly person who's living off of Social Security. They might be a teenager going to high school. They might be the sole breadwinner of a family, like a middle-aged person. So there's a variety of different roles that a person can play, and they're assigned randomly when people come into the room, and their job is to play that role as true to how it should be played as possible. So when they come into the room, they receive a packet that's full of information. So the participants receive information about their bills, information about their sources of income, the different types of benefits they might be on, and the responsibilities that they have for their month in poverty. So each person receives that information, and they're assigned to a family. So there are a few people who are just individuals in their family. They're a family of one, but most people are interacting with another family or with other family members during the poverty simulation. And their job is to work together to try to navigate their month in poverty the best as possible. In addition, there's the family units that come in. Those are the participants, and then there are community organizations involved as well. So there are people playing the roles of the banker or the school teacher, the employer, all of the different types of agencies that somebody just in their day-to-day life might interact with. So there's really two groups of people in the poverty simulation. There's the participants, so those are the folks who are going through the month in poverty as part of a family, and then there's the volunteers who are taking the place of those community resource providers like the school or the banker or the grocery store worker, the realtor, that kind of thing. So regardless of who you are in the poverty simulation, the goal really is to sensitize the participants to the realities of life in poverty. A lot of times we're facilitating poverty simulations with different policymakers or folks who are on kind of the back side of working with people in poverty. So we facilitated these for different departments in the government. We've facilitated poverty simulations for groups of teachers, for partnerships of nonprofits in different counties. So you name it, everybody can really benefit from a poverty simulation. But the goal is at the end to get people really thinking about what life is like in poverty, and then also to motivate people to become involved. So you have a little bit of information about what a poverty simulation is and the goals. Our standard timeline is it usually takes about 3 hours to facilitate a poverty simulation. So we start off by, like I said, the participants come in and they are given a role, a new persona to play for their month in poverty. So they sit down, and you can see in this picture on the webinar, they're in like little family pods of chairs. So each family has a home where they go, and they sit with their other family members. And then for the first 20 minutes or so, there's an introduction where the facilitator will give information about what the participants should expect. So basically kind of the spiel that I'm about to give right now will be given to the participants in much more detail, as they really do need to know the intricacies of all of the different agencies and that kind of thing. So they're given an introduction, and then we give them about 15 minutes to look over that packet of information. So they do have a packet that gives some background information about who they are, what their role is that they're playing, their bills, their income, their responsibilities. All of that is in a packet of information that they receive. And we give them time to sit down as a family, look at it, and kind of come up with a plan for their month in poverty. So after that, we bring everybody back together, and like I keep mentioning, this month in poverty. So that's really the meat of the simulation, is the month in poverty. We break the month up into weeks. So there are 4 15-minute weeks in poverty. And then in between each week, I give about a 2 or 3 minute break, so that during that time everybody comes back to their family pods, back to those chairs, and they're able to regroup with their family and try to come up with a plan, look at what they did well the week before, and figure out how they're going to change or modify for the next week. So we do that 4 times. There's 4 15-minute weeks, and that usually takes just a little bit over an hour in order to do the actual simulation. After that, you usually give them a break, and then we come back together for a guided debrief. Depending on what the situation looks like, sometimes we will lump a few families together and have them do a small group debrief. We have guided debrief questions, and then we'll have them pick somebody to report out to the whole group and do a smaller debrief and a larger debrief in that way, where there's like a person who reports out from each group. That's usually the way that we facilitate the debrief, unless it's a really small group, in which case we can kind of open it up to have just each individual person reflect. But that's something that we can also modify for your group, is our debrief questions. If there's certain things that you want to make sure that they're getting out of it, that's something that we can work with you too. So all of that together takes about 3 hours, and the poverty simulation is finished. So that's an overview of what the poverty simulation is. So what are our responsibilities? If you do decide to move forward with this, we will help you through the planning process. So as I mentioned earlier, we have facilitated these for all different types of groups. A lot of the time it is kind of a coalition of folks or different organizations who want to come together and host a poverty simulation, but maybe they don't have enough people to participate if they're just hosting it for their organization. We've also done it for built-in groups. I mean, you name it. Some organizations need a little bit more help than others, and we're here to help you with that. We facilitate the simulation. Once we get there, you pretty much don't have to do anything. We come prepared with all of the materials. We do all of the final setup and everything like that the day of. So we take it you aren't expected to do anything other than maybe do a brief introduction or welcome to your participants if you'd like to do that. So your responsibilities really are more ahead of time. So this is a benefit that's only for CEDAM members, so your organization does need to be a CEDAM member, and you can find information about how to apply if you're not already a member on the website where you found this link. You also are responsible for securing the space. We do need a pretty large space. Just a standard conference room or something like that won't work because the minimum are 40 participants, so we need a lot of room for people to be walking around. You also need to secure the tables and the chairs. So we need 12 tables and around 150 chairs for a full simulation. These are numbers that we can work with you on too, but just know that you do need a lot of chairs and a lot of tables, a lot of space. The tables are for those community organizations like the school teacher or the realtor. Those are based around the perimeter of the room. And then the chairs are for the family groups that are in the middle of the room, and then also some of the community organizations need pods of chairs as well. So you're also responsible for ensuring we have participants at the simulation. So like I said, a minimum of 40 is required, and then a maximum of 75. We really can't do it with less than 40 because part of the simulation is interacting with other people. So as we get into the 30s and upper 20s, that piece of it really diminishes. And the same thing with the maximum, there are only a certain number of family roles. So without like doubling someone showing up and having two people play the same role, we really can't go any more than 75 participants. In addition, you are responsible for recruiting volunteers. So the volunteers will play those roles of the community resource providers. So all in all, you're going to need around 55 people. The volunteers, a lot of organizations have actually found people who have those roles in their community. So they'll talk to a credit union and get a credit union representative to come in and play the role of the banker. They'll find a local real estate agent to come in and play the role of the mortgage company. They'll find, like, we've had actual police officers come in and play the role of the police officers. So it can be really fun, but that does add a little bit more work to your plate, is recruiting volunteers like that. But it also does help to get more information out about the agencies in your community. We do have social services, community action agency, and then an interface in the simulation represented. So those are different. Like we've had people from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services come in and play the role of social services, or staff from community action agency playing that role. So it's a great way to bring in more individuals from your community to actually ask them to play those roles of the volunteers. So it is your responsibility to recruit them. For a small simulation, if we're closer to 40 people attending, then you only need 15 volunteers. But for a larger simulation, if we're at 75, we absolutely need 20 volunteers because some of the locations can get very, very busy. So that's something we can chat with you more about too. And then you're also responsible for setting up the floor plan prior to our arrival. And that's something that we'll send you a copy of. You just set up the chairs as they are on a detailed diagram so that when we arrive, all we have to do is a last-minute setup. So that's a brief introduction to the poverty simulation and what's expected of you if you do decide to go forward with this, and then what we'll bring to the table as well. So if you have other questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. It is kind of a complicated process, but we have hosted these across the state, and they're really fun. And every time, there's never been a time where people haven't come up to us afterwards and said how great of an experience it was, how moving it was, how it reminded them of why they got into the field to begin with. So it's a great experience for everybody involved. So if you'd like to learn more or possibly talk to us about setting up a poverty simulation, contact Susan Andrews. She's CEDAM's Membership and Events Specialist. Her email address is andrews@cedam.info, and you can also find that on the web page where you found this webinar. And she will work with you to create a contract and an invoice. And there is a fee for the poverty simulation. We are working on setting up a standardized fee for that here at CEDAM right now. So please do reach out to Susan, and she'll be able to provide you more information about that as well. So thank you very much for this. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Susan. We hope to work with you soon.